Colby was soft compared to you guys. When I heard you guys said you had 4 drinks a cup, I was like, we never did that. It was always biz drinks per cup.
For the past 3 decades, I have had a not-so-secret obsession simmering beneath the layers of an average American life. The time has come to seek the community of like-minded true believers. This is the road to Beard Eye Nation. Episode 8, Days of Loudness. A story emerged as we worked on the first episodes this season from one of the choir members about his first job out of college and Beard Eye's role in endearing him to his new supervisor.
All right, so it's my first job out of school. I'm a college football coach at a Division III program. The defense coordinator who hires me, we go through, kind of the install and all, like, you spend all that time together during the summer and like learn, like, on the run up, and start talking. One day we're having a few drinks like after work, and he was like, "Hey man, like, so what was your game of choice? Or like what did you guys play at Lake Forest? Like what was it?" And I was like, "It was Beard Eye." He was like, "My man, that's exactly like that. That say no more." He's like,
when we caught up with our new defensive coordinator, so to speak, he not only corroborated the story, but mentioned something at the end that caught my attention beyond their bond over Beard Eye.
I just remember I talk about like Fazy or Fuzzy, but I remember talking drinking games, and he said the 2 words Beard Eye, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here, because there's not too many people that know it and play it and have a crew that that's like Midwest, out east, and then we immediately. I think I usually revert to Colby invented Beard Eye, brother. Which, whether that's true or not, or not, I will hold it. We'll bring it up all the time, only because you've got to, right?
I don't remember where I heard that Beard Eye was invented at Colby College in Maine, but it's an idea I have believed since college. I remember skiing at Breckenridge during spring break my junior year and going out alone because I wasn't as advanced as my friends who were all either skiers, hockey players, or both. I got on a lift with a guy a few years older than I was who was skiing with his dad and uncle in the chair ahead of us. As we got into the typical small talk customary in such situations, he mentioned he had gone to Colby College. And shortly after perking up with excitement, I asked him if he had ever heard of Beard Eye. And of course, he had. I proceeded to pepper him with questions and probably asked him to be my new best friend for all I can remember. So as a listener can probably imagine, when I heard early on in this project we might be able to get someone from Colby to participate, this episode became a must. I wanted to know what brought a kid from the somewhat metropolitan West Hartford to a small college in the relatively remote river town of Waterville, Maine.
So I wanted to play sports. I was thinking about playing football and baseball. Wasn't good enough to play at any real significant level. Was a decent student. I wouldn't have got into Colby without sports. It's funny, the story. The defensive coordinator at Colby was the head baseball coach, and then I got to work with those guys. The defense coordinator is still a good friend. He's still there. When I decided I wanted to basically play more die and drink beer and just lift weights in the spring instead of play baseball, he got all pissed at me, and he just said it straight to my face. He's like, you wouldn't have gotten in here if you had, we were counting on you being a 2-sport athlete. I'm like, well, you're going to get one. So I looked at some other NESCAC schools, actually Trinity in my backyard. They kind of stopped recruiting me. I looked at some other Division III schools like Gettysburg and Hobart, New York. And quite honestly, I had a great recruiting trip at Colby, which wraps into Beard Eye for sure.
Tell me about it.
So it was I was just when you guys invited me onto this podcast, I was telling my future wife about this story recently. It was like it was probably like this time of year, late February. My dad got me up at 5 in the morning, drove 5 hours to Colby, and there was a guy from my hometown that was a sophomore, and he hosted me, and so we did the whole tour around campus. This guy's a doctor now, by the way, and good dude. And dad says goodbye at like 4:30. We go get dinner, and then like the conversation starts to being had, like the feel out conversation when you're a hosting a recruit. Is like, will this guy toss back some beers? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in, I'm in. So we go up to a room that's like laid out. It was Colby had like unique dorm rooms. This dorm room had like a suite and then like four single rooms off it, and there were five players.
So it had like
It was like
it had like 4 rooms with a Beard Eye Stadium in the middle of them.
that's exactly,
Yeah.
dude. It was like the perfect setup for like you walk in and all the furniture is like around the wall, and there's this perfect space. And I don't even know what I'm getting myself into. I was the only recruit. I was with my host, and there were four other guys. So he was a sophomore, and there were four other juniors. He hung out with like the grade above him, and we were sitting around, and he goes, "Yeah, so you wanna have some drinks?" I'm like, "Yeah." And at the time, Colby, he literally picks up the phone. So there's six guys in the room, including me. He picks up the phone and says, "Yeah, can I get 3 cases of Busch Light bottles?" And I was like, "Who's he talking to?" He hangs up the phone. 15 minutes later, there's a knock on the door. I'm not even talking about a knock on the outside of the door. I'm talking about a knock outside the dorm door. And there's a guy from the liquor store with 3 cases of Busch Light for 6 dudes on a dolly. Back in the they stopped that policy that year, but they used to be able to deliver the
I
beer
wonder
right.
why.
Yeah, seriously. So as that's all going on, a table is getting laid out, and my guy's like, "You ever play Beer Die?" And I'm like, "Nope, never heard of it." And he's like, "Well, just watch, you'll get the hang of it." And like immediately, I'm like, "All right." And it's funny listening to some of the stuff that you guys have put out already, that like I'm watching it, and like it's all of them are players. They all know each other, and they just start talking shit. And I'm this 17-year-old, I guess I was 18 at the time, just watching it like, all right, I got the rules down, I think. But like, as I'm watching, I'm just drinking a couple bush lights on the side, and then I jump on the table with my host, and like he's talking shit and going back and forth, and like, I'm a competitive guy. Kush knows this. I'm like, I guess this is what this is about, or I'm not really sure. So I don't want to be like the arrogant, you know, recruit, but I'm like, if these guys are talking shit, I'm going to talk shit. But I wasn't very good. But I still was talking shit. Long story short, after about like 2 hours, most of those Busch Lights were gone. And I wasn't doing a lot of winning, but I was having fun. I'm like, God damn, this is a great game. And it's only about like 10:30 at the time. And this was like a pregame before we were going to walk down like this hill to go to a party. And I just remember leaving the dorm. It's freezing. And I'm just, I'm hammered, completely sideways. But like I'm fired up because of what I just experienced for the last 2 hours. So I walk down to this party. And so at Colby, there's like, we're in this bigger dorm, and in this common room, they got keg. You could have kegs like right in the common room. So there's like guys and girls hanging out, music's blaring. And then there's this other room off to the side that was like kind of where a bunch of the football guys were. And I'm like bouncing back and forth. But the first thing I noticed when you go into the common room, there's like girls, guys mingling, but over to the right side of the room, there was space and there was a table down, and they were playing die. I'm like, God damn. I'm like, and people were doing the same exact thing. I'm like, this is what happens at every party? He's like, before the party, during the party, after the party. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to get good if I come.
You may recall stories of recruiting trip beard eye games changing the course of people's lives in earlier episodes this season. While we may have had that move in our playbook at Lake Forest, our game was way more underground than during the same time at Colby.
Fraternity up until about like 1988. And so a little backstory on Colby. They used to like, and someone may have mentioned this, but like they were known as like a wet campus. Like they wanted the drinking to happen on the campus and not go off. And so there's actually still to this day this beautiful home, like they were old frat houses, and it's still called Frat Row, and they're just all converted into dorms, and it leads down to like another dorm right in the middle of campus. And one of those dorms was the dorm I just described on my recruiting trip. So to answer your question, everyone stayed on campus. They had this thing, so we would get there for football 2 weeks before school started and do like the old double sessions, and we would end doubles on a Saturday morning with a scrimmage, inter squad scrimmage. Basically 2 weeks out, the following weekend we would have like a scrimmage against another team in the conference, and then we would start our season the next weekend. So that Saturday that ended doubles was what the campus called the first day of Loudness. And that was the opportunity where you could drink on campus. That was like the celebration. Everyone's back on campus. School started on Monday. So doubles, we ended with the scrimmage at like 11 o'clock. And, we were immediately into one of those dorms where the same thing was happening. Drinking, there's always a table throwing die. And so there was always a last day of Loudness the Saturday before exams started. And that was like, from what I remember, die tables out like in, so they would rope off spots on campus where you could just have tables out, people playing die, and there would be kegs and drinks inside the rope. But my freshman year, this was crazy. This is the last day of Loudness on campus. We're throwing the die around. We're like in this roped hour, beautiful day. Like beautiful day. It's like you couldn't get any better. Sitting on a table playing die, gorgeous day. And then we're like, we got to go to this off-campus house that like did have a lot of parties throughout the year. And it was this old farmhouse on this huge piece of property. And you pull up and there's like this huge box truck, and it's just filled with kegs. And it's this long driveway as you pull up to the house, and it's like 3 o'clock, and you just see out on this farm tables, 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 people hanging out, watching. Everyone's throwing the die all over the place on the last day allowed this. It was awesome.
I was looking forward to a tutorial in how beer die is played at its supposed Eden, and happy to find out we were pretty close at Lake Forest, particularly when it came to the legendary old school rules followed in the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys went through your rules. It was all the same. You didn't mention, but you mentioned when we just talked that if you did get a sink, you would sign a nickname on the table, and then you would tally it if you're ever back on that table. The one thing that you guys mentioned that I'd have to double check with my guys. You said that when Biz landed on the table, it wasn't a penalty.
Yeah,
Is that
we
yeah.
had Biz saving whoever was going to drink from drinking.
Yeah, I think we drank on Biz and Buzz.
Well, you can't drink on Buzz, right?
Yeah, just Biz, excuse
Yeah,
me, just
right.
Biz. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Just Biz.
if you had a Buzz sided die, that's a whole different
Yeah,
podcast.
that's a different game. Yeah. I might be too buzzed. Yes.
So
I'm
did
almost positive we drank on.
so did Biz? So Biz was like any other number, or Biz created an additional drink penalty or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was an additional drink. I may, I'm 49. Um, but I think we had an additional drink if Biz was on the table.
Did you have anything where after a sink you had to spit the die back out on the table and have
We
the
did,
number
yeah.
matter? And then that number, because we always heard that like there was this rumor at Lake Forest about one day we're gonna play old school rules. Like there was this
So I
thing
think
called
this is where I think the Biz, maybe I'm confusing, is I think if you, after finishing the beer and you spit it out on the table and Biz popped up, you had to do a whole nother beer.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense because we used to talk about this. There was this thing called old school rules, was what we called it, and we're like, well, one day we'll play old school rules when we're gonna, you know what I mean? Like we'll throw on Depends and play old school rules and not leave and whatever. And like that was the thing about old school rules was you spit it out, and if it's Biz, you have to do a whole nother beer, and that was
Yeah.
just like the prospect of that was like so daunting that
Oh yeah,
I was.
that definitely happened, and the shit talking was just phenomenal when it did.
Yeah,
So that
right.
so that so that's legit then. Old school
Oh yeah,
rules from the Eden of fucking Beard Eye
yeah.
right
So
there.
I've been racking my brain since I heard your podcast. I was like, man, I know we had a drinking penalty for Biz landing on the table, and
That
I'm
that's
glad we
that
talked
makes
that out.
sense that that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
because that we
yeah.
used to hear about we used to talk about
Did
that and
you
hear about that. It was like a
did you
ghost.
have to did you guys have to spit the die out
No,
when?
you would for like effect, but
Yeah,
like you didn't have we didn't,
yeah,
that was like the man's way of doing it, but it didn't
yeah,
matter. Like no one
yeah,
gave a shit if you reached your hand in there, but it was just a little
yeah.
bit. While we would always threaten a depends party at mid 90s Lake Forest, Colby College at the same time had apparently been doing it for years.
This the one thing or another tradition at Colby that they had that I like, maybe it was because of what I witnessed my freshman year. They would have these lock-ins, and it used to think I think it happened on or around St. Patrick's Day weekend. And so my guy who hosted me is now a junior, and I get a and maybe it wasn't a Saturday. For whatever reason, I remember it being like I had classes in the morning. I think it was a Friday. So he might have just been getting a Kickstarter, or he might have just said, "I'm doing a lock in on this Friday because I'm doing something on Saturday." Whatever the case may be, I get a call from him at like 2 o'clock on Friday, and he's like just barely can understand what he's saying. I hear like, "Drew, room now, beer, die." Like just that's all. Like I'm like, all right. I think he wants me to come over. I think, but he's
Spoken like
hammered.
only nouns. Like there is like no
Yes.
verb, right? It's just
I'm
all
like,
nouns.
I'm like, all right. I think he wants me to come over. So it's like I just had lunch. It's like I'm not averse to day drinking. We'll go check this thing out. And so I walk into the room, and there's four dudes, beard eye table out, keg in the room, and they've locked themselves. They're doing a lock in with a keg. So the reason they call me over is because they are realizing they are reaching a peak in terms of their consumption, and they can't leave until this keg is kicked. So they're trying to
Now,
get people over.
and this was a self-proclaimed. This was like a
Yeah,
self-regulated. It's not
yeah.
like everybody was doing it. They were just like, we're gonna do a lock-in. Boom.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it is a tradition. Like
Okay.
and it's
So it's
not
like
always
that.
with a keg. I guess it's predetermined. This is how much beer we're getting. We're going into the room, and you don't. I don't think the rule was you had to play beer die, but like you're at Colby and it's February, and why wouldn't you? It's the best way to get rid of all that beer. And so like what I witnessed, like the first half hour being in that room was like something out of, I mean, like a movie where I'm sober when I walk in the door. These four guys are out of their minds sideways,
Oh,
but
it's
they are slinging die like you've never seen, like making catches, sinks, talking shit, even though you can't even understand what they're saying. Like they had hit another level where they were so hammered. They were like yet in the zone playing die. I was like, what am I watching right now? Like I get on the table like one beer in and just get smoked. Absolutely smoked. I was like, that's when I realized as a freshman, I was like, I got some work to do. I thought I was decent in my Hillside Tuesday night die game, but no, I got some work to do to hang with these juniors and seniors.
they outlawed kegs at Lake Forest starting the first year I arrived on campus. While the glorious days of decadence lasted a little longer than that at Colby, change was definitely in the air.
It's in just in the 4 years I was there, each year the rules got a little bit tighter in terms of so like you couldn't get the beer delivered to the door, but you
You
could
could
get cake.
that was like DoorDash
Was that
before
before or after
DoorDash,
you
30
like
years
was your
early.
did you at least get a freshman year where you could call and order it or
So no,
did
I didn't get so not bottles or cans. You could order kegs. So so freshman year you could as long as you were 21, they would roll a keg up to or kegs as many as you wanted actually. And as long as someone was 21 to sign it, so like we would be down in the
Buy the
weight room on
10
it.
kegs for
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah. By sophomore year, this was hilarious. You had to register the party like with the school, and so we were 21 at the time, and so we were good. And it was hilarious. You just had to like register saying you were hosting the party. The kegs would still come, but you had to offer, this is hilarious. You had to offer snacks and you had to offer non-alcoholic beverage. So like up on like some shelf over in the
Was
corner
it
of like some
Sprite?
common area is like a bottle of Dr. Pepper and like a bag of Fritos while everyone's throwing die in the room. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh my goodness. That is crazy.
But there was a lot of like, I think about freshman year, my buddy lived in like the most generic triple. And so freshman year, we didn't get put with athletes. You got just, random roommate. So he had two guys that we tried to, bring along and play die with us or come out and they didn't have any interest. One, I think, ended up transferring. We might had something to do with that. But like, he had just a foldable table that he stacked behind his bunk bed, and it'd be a Tuesday night and be like, hey, we got a couple cases. We'd roll up to Hillside, was the name of the dorm. That's where I lived actually, the rest of my, I think, sophomore through senior year. But like, it was one of those rooms. It was just one big triple, one big room, and you movable desk, movable closet, movable bed, so everything's moved along the walls, and then perfect fit for the beer dive table right in the middle. And like the two roommates freshman year, they'd be sleeping in one corner, one be trying to sleep in another corner with headsets, and we're yelling biz and buzz and talking shit playing die.
When we were setting up our interview, the coordinator sent me an article from the Colby Echo entitled, quote, "A Colby Tradition, a Dying Culture." The article, complete with this punny title that should have made every single teacher in the Colby English department proud, was written in the earliest 2000s and mentioned that beer dye had been invented at Colby, but most students preferred beer pong and didn't even know the rules to beer dye. This rang eerily familiar to the Lake Forest college my brother found in 2007, and affirmed for me that not only were we a close descendant of Colby Beard Eye, but that we too had done it right on some level. Paradise will always eventually be lost, and even in Eden, transgression has consequences.
So we would have fall break, which was like a Monday, Tuesday off. So everyone would leave campus except for the athletes, fall athletes. And I think we had the Mondays off, and for some reason they still gave us the Monday off, even though we didn't have school. So like I remember being in a smaller dorm where it was one of the old frat houses, those dorms that are still called frat row. We were up on the third floor, and it was enough space to put basically four die tables back to back to back along a hallway. And no one was in the hallway because everyone was gone. One guy or two players lived up on that floor, and we played die like competitively, like keeping track and like created like but it wasn't organized until we were all up there playing. But no, nothing like we got a beer die tournament that I can remember. um like a setup tournament, but that day was ridiculous. Tuesday practice wasn't very productive, I can tell you that. I remember turning, like, Tuesday was like the conditioning day. I went, and the coach knew we were drinking plenty of beers on Monday, and he like lined us up. We used to do, I can't remember, gassers, whatever the name was. You'd be on the sideline, you have to sprint the other sideline back. You do two trips. And I remember the backup quarterback, who was definitely there the entire time. I looked over at him, and he just looked at me. He goes, "Time to pay for our sins." I was like, "Oh God." I was like, "Oh God, this
Yeah.
is going to be hard."
No good party goes unpunished. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Beard Eye Nation is out there, and true believers from coast to coast tempt karma, fate, and the cultural norms of civilized society, chasing whatever this is we do. While it isn't a magic message on the scoreboard at Fenway Park, we take you to a milk farm in Massachusetts for more of these stories on the road to Beard Eye Nation.
where the challengers strut their stuff. Red Solo cups and dice that fly.
The Road to Beard Eye Nation is produced by the 9 Stories Up Investigative Department in association with Beanbag Studios. If you think you know a true believer, please let them know about the show. If you think you may be a true believer, please give us a Biz Star rating. If you think you may be part of the choir, please reach out to us via email at beardeyenationpodcast@gmail.com or Beard Eye Nation on the major social media outlets so we can tell your story in a future episode. The first Beard Eye Nation live reunion is taking place this July in the Chicago area. Please email us for more details or check out our website, beardeyenation.com. As always, I'd like to thank the Choir of True Believers, and particularly our newly hired defensive coordinator, who drew up one of his best plays for me and the Pope in our film session.
He'd always start humming to himself. And then he would start singing, like, he would just start with the hum, and then he'd be like, A, B, C, easy as 1, 2, and he would just kind of like just sing it quietly over and over, and then like I would like kind of start to sing, and I like, then we kind of like put it to rest. It was kind of subtle, but then he would come back to it one more time, and then I'd be like, God damn, man, you got that song in my head. Who sings that? And then 3 out of 4 times.
Oh my God, he's playing chess.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 times. On the other side, they'd be like, that's Jackson 5. You don't know that? I'm like, drink, motherfucker.
Catches, tosses, spins.